guys, welcome to the channel. In this video we have, in my opinion, 7 of the world's most dangerous inmates. Also, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Now at number 7 we have Jason Barnum, also known as the Eyeball Man. Now let's be honest, the only reason Barnum made this list is because of his tattoos. The reason he is called the Eyeball Man is because of a tattoo that darkened the white part of his right eye. But don't get me wrong, Barnum is definitely a dangerous man. In 2012, Barnum busted a cap in a police officer's ass. Barnum's face is also covered in tattoos, including a large skull on top of his head, leaving officials to think he decided a long time ago that his life was about being hostile to people. Let me know in the comments if you think he should be judged by his appearance or just his attitude and behavior. At number 6 we have Mary Malone. Mary Malone was a super spreader before the term even existed. A disease carrier so notorious, she acquired a famous nickname of Typhoid Mary. Mary showed no symptoms, but was infected with typhoid and triggered multiple outbreaks in New York at the turn of the 20th century. She was a cook for affluent families, and everywhere that Mary went, the alarm was sure to the bacterial infection followed, sickening one household after another. She holds the all-time record for taking the most lives accidentally, infecting over 50 people. In 1907, a medical researcher identified her, leading to Malone being forcibly quarantined for the rest of her life on North Brother Island, a containment site on New York East River. She died in 1938, aged 69, vilified in folk memory as the most dangerous woman in America, a patient zero who needed to be isolated, quarantined, and locked up, a de facto prisoner until death. Next up is Aileen Wuornos, also known as Monster. Serial killer Aileen Wuornos was sexually abused and thrown out of her home as a teen. Having been involved in previous incidents with the law, she made a living as a sex worker on Florida's highways, and in 1989, she killed a man who had picked her up. She went on to kill at least 5 other men and was eventually caught, convicted, and placed on death row. She killed them by shooting them at point-blank range. Wuornos claimed that her victims had either raped or attempted to rape her while she was servicing them, and that all of the homicides were committed in self-defense. Wuornos was executed by lethal injection on the morning of October 9, 2002. Her cremated remains were buried in her town of birth. Now before I move on, I just want to remind you to click the subscribe button and turn on your post notifications. At number 4 we have Dennis Rader, aka BTK. Dennis, an American serial killer who murdered 10 people over a span of 3 decades before his arrest and confession in 2005. He called himself BTK because he bound, tortured, and killed his victims. Rader was raised in Wichita, Kansas. He later claimed that as a youth he killed animals and developed violent sexual fantasies that involved bondage. He held various jobs, including a brief stint as a factory worker for the Coleman Company, a maker of camping equipment. Rader was active in his church and he served as a Boy Scout leader. On January 15, 1974, Rader committed his first murders, strangling 4 family members, including 2 children, in their Wichita home the mother had worked for, Coleman. Semen was found at the scene, though none of the victims had been sexually assaulted. Rader stole a watch and would often acquire souvenirs, often underwear, from subsequent victims. Maybe he should have called himself the Panty Snatcher. He then went on to kill another Coleman employee and later on killed 5 more women. After his 7th murder, he grew irritated by the lack of media coverage. In a letter to a local TV station, he wrote, "How many people do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention?" This set off a panic, but police were still unable to figure anything out. After killing his last 3 victims, the cases went cold. Years later, Dana sent police a floppy disk, making fun of how they couldn't catch him, and they were able to use DNA from this disk and match it to his DNA at his church, and finally tracked him down and arrested him. At number 3, we have John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown. John was an American serial killer and rapist who took the lives of at least 33 young males in Cook County, Illinois, burying most under his house. Other bodies were recovered from a river nearby. He got the name Killer Clown because of his habit of dressing in a clown costume and makeup similar to the Pennywise clown. John had an abusive childhood and struggled with his homosexuality. After being convicted of sexual assault in 1968, John's murders were discovered. The Killer Clown sometimes lured his victims with the promise of construction work or some other ruse, and then captured, sexually assaulted, tortured, and eventually strangled most of them with his hands or with a rope. At number 2, we have Andrei Romanovich Chikatilo, also known as the Red Ripper. Andrei was born in 1936 in Ukraine. Andrei had a difficult childhood, and the only sexual experience as an adolescent ended quickly and led to much ridicule, leading to later sexually violent acts. When the police caught him, he confessed to the gruesome murder of 56 people and was found guilty in 1992 and executed in 1994. All of his victims were either transients, children, or runaways who no one would miss. Andrei began picking them up at bus stops or train stations and treating them all the same. He would stab them to subdue them and gag them to quiet them. He would occasionally mutilate their bodies with his teeth or attempt sexual intercourse with them before covering them with leaves and dirt to hide the evidence. And finally, at number 1, we have Rodney Alcala, also known as the Dating Game Killer. Rodney is a convicted rapist, torturer, and serial killer who evaded justice for 40 years. He got his nickname the Game Show Contestant or Dating Game Killer because he was once a contestant on the show The Dating Game, where he won a date with another contestant. However, the date never happened because the woman found him to be too creepy. Rodney was secretly kidnapping, raping, and murdering women and children. And when the show was filmed, he was at the peak of his killing spree. The handsome American would go on to be linked to over 130 women and children's deaths, including a 12-year-old girl, and was known for biting his dead victims' naked bodies before photographing them in sexually explicit poses. He's currently in California State Prison, Corcoran, pending further appeals of his death sentences. Guys, if you made it this far, I really do appreciate you. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and we'll be back with more videos.